Captain Li Huan stood on the bridge of the TFS Indomitable, watching the stars through the main view screen. His weathered face showed no emotion, but inside, his heart was heavy. 3 months ago, the outer colonies had been safe. Now, one by one, they were falling to an enemy humanity had never seen before. The Velkari Empire had appeared without warning. Their ships were unlike anything in the known galaxy. They looked alive, with curves and surfaces that seemed to breathe. Their hulls were dark green and purple, with veins of light running through them like blood vessels. When they attacked, they moved like predators hunting prey. "Captain," said Commander Park Gina from her station. She was younger than Huan, but her tactical mind was sharper than anyone he had ever served with. "We're receiving a transmission from Haven's Rest Colony." Huan nodded. "Put it through." The view screen flickered, showing a man in colonial administrator clothes. His face was pale with fear, and smoke filled the room behind him. "This is Administrator Chen from Haven's Rest. We have 50,000 civilians ready for evacuation. Our defense fleet is gone. The Velkari Armada will reach us in 6 hours. Please, we need immediate assistance." The transmission cut to static. Huan felt his jaw tighten. 6 hours. Even if they pushed the engines to their limits, they would barely make it in time. "Sir," Lieutenant Kim Dae spoke from the engineering station. He was the youngest officer on the bridge, but he could make the ship's systems do impossible things. "I'm reading 200 Velkari ships moving toward Haven's Rest. Our long-range sensors confirm it." Park Gina turned to face the captain. "Sir, Command sent new orders 10 minutes ago. We're to retreat to the inner systems. They're abandoning the outer colonies." Huan was quiet for a long moment. Around him, the bridge crew waited. They all knew what retreat meant. 50,000 people would die. The Velkari didn't take prisoners. They destroyed everything human. Dr. Choi Mina, the chief medical officer, had been studying the few Velkari bodies they had recovered from previous battles. She said they viewed other species as inferior. They killed not for resources or territory, but because they believed only they deserved to exist. "Communications," Huan said finally. "Get me Lieutenant Yun Tae." The young communications officer looked nervous. He had graduated from the academy only 6 months ago. This was his first real combat assignment. "Sir?" "Send a message to command. Tell them the Indomitable is experiencing engine problems. We'll need 12 hours to make repairs before we can retreat." Park Gina raised an eyebrow. She knew the engines were working perfectly. "Captain?" Huan turned to face his crew. These were good people. They had served together for 3 years. They trusted him, and he trusted them. "We're going to Haven's Rest." The bridge was silent. Kim Dae was the first to speak. "Sir, 200 ships against 1. Those aren't good odds." "No," Huan agreed. "They're terrible odds, but 50,000 people are counting on us. If we don't go, who will?" "Park." Gina stood up from her station. "The evacuation ships will need time to get everyone off the planet. How long can we hold them?" "As long as it takes," Huan said. "Kim, I need everything you can give me from the engines. Gina, start working on battle plans. We need to think differently. The Velkari are stronger than us, faster than us, and they have more ships, but they don't think like humans." "What do you mean, sir?" Yun Tae asked. "They're predictable," Huan explained. "Every battle report shows they use the same tactics. They form up in perfect formations. They attack in waves. They follow patterns. We don't." Dr. Choi Mina entered the bridge carrying a data pad. "Captain, I've been studying the Velkari bioships. Their hulls can heal themselves, but they have a weakness. They need to be connected to their command ship to function properly. It's like a hive mind." "Interesting," Park Gina said. "If we could disrupt that connection, we could cause confusion in their ranks," Huan finished. "Good work, Doctor. Keep studying those biopatterns. We'll need every advantage we can get." The Indomitable was a Titan-class battlecruiser. She was built for long-range patrol, not for fighting entire fleets. Her crew of 800 was well-trained, but they had never faced anything like this. Still, Huan had confidence in them. Humans were survivors. When things looked impossible, they found a way. "Captain," Kim Dae reported, "I've rerouted power from non-essential systems. We can increase speed by 15%, but we'll be running hot. Do it, Juan ordered. How long until we reach Haven's Rest? 5 hours and 30 minutes at maximum speed, Park Gina calculated. That would give them 30 minutes before the Velkari arrived. Not much time, but it would have to be enough. All hands, this is the captain, Juan announced over the ship's communication system. In 5 hours, we will engage a Velkari armada of 200 ships. Our mission is to protect the evacuation of 50,000 civilians from Haven's Rest colony. I won't lie to you. The odds are against us. But we are human. We don't give up. We don't abandon people who need our help. Battle stations. Throughout the ship, the crew moved to their positions. In the engine room, Kim Dae's team pushed the fusion reactors to their limits. In the medical bay, Dr. Choi Mina prepared for casualties while continuing her research on Velkari biology. In the communications center, Yoon Tae coordinated with the evacuation fleet. Park Gina stood beside Juan on the bridge studying tactical displays. I have an idea, she said. The Haven's Rest system has an asteroid field near the 4th planet. If we could lead them into it, the asteroids would limit their movement, Juan agreed. They couldn't use their superior numbers effectively. Exactly. And there's something else. The system's star is unstable. It produces solar flares every few hours. If we timed it right, Juan smiled for the first time in days. We could use the electromagnetic pulse to disrupt their bioships. As the Indomitable raced through space, the crew prepared for the impossible. They checked weapons, ran system diagnostics, and said quiet prayers. Some wrote letters they hoped their families would never receive. Juan walked through the ship talking to his crew. He stopped by the engine room where Kim Dae was covered in grease and sweat. How are we doing, Lieutenant? The engines are singing. Sir? I've never pushed them this hard, but they're holding together. And weapons? All systems green. I've also been working on something special. Remember those Velkari bio-components we salvaged from the last battle? I think I can use them. To create a feedback pulse, it might confuse their systems. Juan nodded. Good thinking, keep working on it. In the medical bay, Dr. Choi Mina was studying microscopic samples under a scanner. Captain, I think I understand how their bioships work. They're not just machines. They're living creatures bred for war. But like all living things, they can be hurt. What did you find? They're vulnerable to certain frequencies. Sound waves, electromagnetic pulses, even specific light patterns. Their nervous systems are more complex than ours, but also more fragile. On the bridge, Yoon Tae was coordinating with the evacuation fleet. Sir, I've contacted the transport ships. They can have everyone loaded in 4 hours, but they need time to reach the jump point. How much time? Juan asked. 2 hours minimum. That means we need to hold the Velkari for 6 hours total. 6 hours against 200 ships. It seemed impossible. But Juan had learned never to underestimate human determination. As they approached Haven's Rest, the sensors detected the evacuation in progress. Hundreds of small ships were moving people from the planet's surface to the waiting transports. Families, children, elderly people, all depending on the Indomitable to protect them. Captain, Park Gina announced, Velkari fleet detected. They'll be here in 20 minutes. All right, people, Juan said over the comm. This is it. Remember, we're not trying to win. We're trying to buy time. Stay close to the asteroid field. Use the environment. And remember, they've never fought humans before. Let's show them what that means. The Indomitable moved into position, near the asteroid field. Her weapons were charged, her shields were up, and her crew was ready. Against all odds, one human ship was about to face an alien armada. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could do when they refused to give up. The Velkari fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a plague of locusts. 200 ships appeared at once, their biohulls pulsing with alien light. They moved in perfect formation, each ship exactly where it should be. No human fleet had ever been so precise. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Li Huan watched the enemy approach. The Velkari ships were beautiful in a terrifying way. They looked like giant insects or sea creatures from some nightmare ocean. Their hulls were smooth and dark, with patterns of light flowing through them like glowing veins. "Captain," Commander Park Gina reported from her tactical station. "I'm reading their formation. They're arranged in attack waves. First wave has 50 ships, all heavy cruisers. Second wave has 75 ships, mixed classes. The rear guard has the rest, including their command ship." "Which one is the command ship?" Juan asked. "The big one in the back. It's twice the size of the others. My guess is that's where their leader is." Lieutenant Kim Day spoke up from engineering. "Sir, I'm detecting strange energy patterns from their ships. It's like they're all connected somehow. Like a computer network, but biological." Dr. Choi Mina had been studying her scanner readings. "That matches what I found in my research. They share information instantly. When one ship learns something, they all know it. That's an advantage for them," Park Gina noted. "But it could also be a weakness. If we can disrupt that connection, they'll be confused and disorganized," Juan finished. "Good. Kim, how's that feedback pulse coming?" "Almost ready, sir. I need 5 more minutes." Communications Officer Yoon Tae looked up from his station. "Sir, the Velkari are broadcasting on all frequencies. It's some kind of surrender demand." "Let's hear it," Juan ordered. The bridge filled with a voice that sounded like grinding metal and buzzing insects. It spoke in perfect English, which somehow made it more frightening. "Human vessel, you are outnumbered and outgunned. I am War Prime, Thok of the Velkari Empire. Surrender now and your death will be swift. Continue to resist and your suffering will last for days." The transmission ended. Juan looked around at his crew. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes. But they were also determined. These were his people, and they wouldn't back down. "Yoon, open a channel to the Velkari commander." "Channel open, sir." Juan stood up from his captain's chair. "War Prime, Thok, this is Captain Li Huan of the Terran Federation ship Indomitable. I have a counteroffer. Leave this system now and we won't destroy your entire fleet." The bridge crew looked at their captain with surprise. Park Gina almost smiled. She knew Juan well enough to recognize his tactics. He was making the enemy angry, forcing them to make mistakes. Thok's response came quickly. "You dare threaten me? 1 ship against 200? You humans truly are insane." "Maybe we are," Juan replied. "But we're the kind of insane that doesn't give up, ever." He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. "All right, people, they think we're crazy. Let's prove them right. Gina, execute Pattern 77. Pattern 77 was something Park Gina had developed during the war games. It wasn't in any tactical manual because it broke every rule of space combat. Instead of meeting the enemy head-on, the ship would dart between asteroids, using them as cover and weapons. "Understood, sir. Helm, take us into the asteroid field. Emergency speed." The Indomitable shot forward like a bullet, diving between massive space rocks. The Velkari fleet followed, but their perfect formation began to break up as they tried to navigate the obstacles. "First wave is entering the field," Park Gina reported. "They're having trouble maintaining formation." "Kim, now would be a good time for that pulse," Juan said. "Firing now, sir." The feedback pulse erupted from the Indomitable's modified systems. It was invisible to human eyes, but the Velkari ships reacted immediately. Their lights flickered and dimmed. Several ships drifted off course, bumping into asteroids. "It worked," Kim Day shouted. "Their bio-network is disrupted. They can't communicate properly." "Weapons, target the lead ship," Juan ordered. "All forward batteries, fire." The Indomitable's plasma cannons lit up the darkness. Beams of superheated energy struck the lead Velkari cruiser. Its biohull tried to heal itself, but the damage was too severe. The ship broke apart in a brilliant explosion. "1 down, 199 to go," Park Gina said grimly. The Velkari responded with fury. Dozens of bioships opened fire at once. Green energy bolts filled space like a deadly light show. The Indomitable's shields flared as they absorbed the impacts. "Shields down to 80%, Kim Day reported. "But we're still in one piece." Juan gripped his chair as the ship shook from another hit. "Helm, take us deeper into the field. Use the big asteroid at coordinates 479. The ship dove behind a mountain-sized rock just as another volley of enemy fire arrived. The energy bolt struck the asteroid instead, sending chunks of stone flying in all directions. "Captain," Yun-Tae called out, "I'm getting reports from the evacuation fleet. They need more time. The transport ships are having trouble with the planetary gravity." "How much more time?" 4 hours minimum." 4 hours. It might as well have been forever. But Juan had learned not to think about impossible odds. He focused on the next minute, the next shot, the next chance to hurt the enemy. "Gina, what's our next move?" Park Gina studied her tactical display. "The second wave is spreading out to surround us. But they're making a mistake. They're getting too close to the asteroid belts. Gravitational field. Gravitational field. There's a large asteroid cluster with unusual gravity patterns. If we could lure them in there and then use our engines to destabilize the field." Juan grinned. "You want to cause an asteroid avalanche?" "Exactly. It would take out at least 20 ships." "Do it." The Indomitable began a complex dance through the asteroid field. To the Valkyrie, it looked like the human ship was running scared. They followed eagerly, closing in for the kill. War Prime Thok's voice echoed across the communication channels, ordering his ships to finish the humans quickly. But the Valkyrie didn't understand human tactics. They expected their enemies to fight with honor and follow the rules. Humans had different ideas about honor. Sometimes the most honorable thing was to fight dirty. "Now, Kim," Park Gina shouted. Lieutenant Kim Dae fired the ship's engines at full power while activating a gravitational pulse. The combination destabilized the asteroid cluster's delicate balance. Rocks that had been floating peacefully for millions of years suddenly started moving. The effect was spectacular. Dozens of asteroids, some as large as buildings, others as big as cities, began crashing into each other. The Valkyrie ships caught in the chaos couldn't escape fast enough. Their biohulls might heal from energy weapons, but they couldn't survive being crushed by mountain-sized rocks. 23 Valkyrie ships were destroyed in the avalanche. Others were damaged and drifting. For the first time, the aliens' perfect formation was completely broken. That got their attention, Juan observed as the remaining enemy ships regrouped. War Prime Thok's voice came over the communications again, but this time he sounded different, less confident, more angry. "Clever humans, but tricks will not save you. I am bringing my personal guard forward. No more games." The rear of the Valkyrie fleet began moving forward. These ships were different from the others. They were larger, more heavily armed, and their biohulls seemed to pulse with darker energy. Dr. Choi Mina looked up from her medical station. "Captain, I'm detecting different readings from those new ships. They're older, more evolved. I think they're veterans." "Great," Park Gina muttered. "We just made them angry." But Juan was studying the tactical display with interest. "Actually, this might be good news. Look at their formation." Park Gina checked her screens. "They're clustering around the command ship. They're protecting Thok. Which means they're not spreading out to search for us." "Kim, how are our engines?" "Still running hot, but holding together. That gravitational pulse took a lot of power. Can you give me one more trick?" Kim Dae thought for a moment. "Well, sir, I've been studying the star's solar flare patterns. There's going to be a big one in about 20 minutes. If we could get close to the star when it happens, the electromagnetic pulse would fry their biosystems," Dr. Choi Mina added. "But it would also damage us." "How much damage?" Juan asked. "Our shields could probably handle it, but we'd have to be very close to the star. Dangerously close." Juan looked around at his crew. These people had followed him into an impossible battle without question. They deserved to know what he was thinking. "Here's the plan," he said. "We're going to fly straight at the Valkyrie command ship. They'll think we're making a desperate final attack, but at the last second we'll dive toward the star and let the solar flare do our work for us." "Sir," Yun-Tae said quietly, "what if the flare doesn't happen on time? Then we'll be flying into the heart of a star with 200 alien ships shooting at us." Juan smiled grimly. "But I'd rather die trying than give up without a fight." The Indomitable emerged from the asteroid field at full speed. heading directly for the Velkari command ship. Every enemy weapon turned toward them. Space filled with green death as the aliens opened fire. But this time, the humans weren't running away. They were running toward the sun. The Indomitable raced toward the system's star with 200 Velkari ships chasing behind her. Captain Li Huan watched the temperature readings climb as they dove closer to the burning sun. The hull was starting to heat up, but they needed to get close enough for the solar flare to work. "Shields holding at 60%, Lieutenant Kim Dae reported from his engineering station. Sweat dripped down his face as he monitored the ship's systems. Hull temperature rising fast. "We have maybe 5 minutes before things get really dangerous." "Time until the solar flare?" Commander Park Jina asked. Dr. Choi Mina checked her scientific sensors. 3 minutes and 40 seconds. The star's magnetic field is building up energy. Behind them, the Velkari fleet was gaining ground. Their bioships seemed to handle the heat better than human technology. War Prime Thok's voice crackled over the communications. "Running toward the star will not save you, humans. My ships can follow you into the fire itself." Huan smiled grimly. "We're counting on it." The pursuing ships were now close enough that their individual shapes were visible on the main screen. The alien vessels looked even more frightening up close. Their hulls rippled like living skin, and weapon ports opened and closed like mouths full of teeth. "Sir," Communications Officer Yoon Tae called out, "I'm detecting something strange. The Velkari ships are sending chemical signals to each other, some kind of scent-based communication." Dr. Choi Mina looked up from her station with excitement. "That's it. I knew there was something I was missing. Captain, their bioships don't just share information electronically. They use pheromones, chemical signals. It's like how insects communicate in a hive." "Can we disrupt it?" Park Jina asked. "Maybe. If we could broadcast the right chemical signals, we might be able to confuse their entire fleet." Kim Dae was listening while keeping one eye on the engine readings. "I still have some of those Velkari biocomponents I salvaged. Maybe I can use them to create fake pheromone signals." "Do it," Juan ordered. "How much time do you need?" "Give me 2 minutes. You've got 1.5. The flare happens in 2 minutes." Throughout the ship, the crew worked desperately. In the engine room, Kim Dae and his team connected Velkari, biotech to human computers. They had no idea if it would work, but they had to try. In the medical bay, Dr. Choi Mina analyzed the chemical structure of Velkari pheromones. She had been studying them for months, but now she needed to understand them in just minutes. On the bridge, Park Jina calculated the exact moment when they would need to change course. Too early, and the Velkari would have time to escape the solar flare. Too late, and the Indomitable would be cooked along with the enemy. Yoon Tae monitored the evacuation fleet's progress. The transport ships were still loading civilians from Haven's Rest. Families were saying goodbye to their homes, taking only what they could carry. Children asked their parents why they had to leave. The parents had no good answers. 1 minute, until the flare, Dr. Choi Mina announced. "Pheromone disruptor ready," Kim Dae reported. "I have no idea what it's going to do, but it should confuse them." "Fire it now," Juan ordered. The makeshift device activated, broadcasting a mixture of Velkari chemical signals into space. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The enemy ships began to behave strangely. Some veered off course. Others slowed, down or sped up randomly. A few actually started firing at each other. War Prime Thok's voice came over the communications, but now he sounded confused and angry. "What trickery is this? My ships are not responding properly." 40 seconds until flare, Dr. Choi Mina called out. The star ahead of them was growing larger and brighter. The Indomitable's hull was glowing red from the heat. Several non-essential systems had shut down to avoid overloading. "Gina, prepare for emergency turn," Juan ordered. "Ready, sir." "Kim, how are the engines?" "Still running, but barely. We're going to need a lot of luck to pull this off." 20 seconds. The Velkari fleet was in complete chaos now. The pheromone signals had destroyed their coordination. Ships were crashing into each other or wandering off in random directions, but many of them were still following the Indomitable toward the star. 10 seconds. Juan gripped his chair. This was the moment of truth. Everything depended on perfect timing. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. "Now," Juan shouted. Park Gina executed the emergency turn, using every thruster on the ship to change course, as quickly as possible. The Indomitable curved away from the star just as the solar flare erupted. A wall of electromagnetic energy exploded from the sun's surface. It raced outward at the speed of light, carrying enough power to melt planets. The Valkyrie ships, still confused by the pheromone attack, were caught directly in its path. The flare struck them like the hammer of an angry god. Their biohulls, designed to heal from ordinary damage, couldn't handle the massive electromagnetic pulse. Systems that had evolved over millions of years simply shut down. The beautiful, terrible ships went dark and began drifting lifeless through space. The Indomitable's shields absorbed most of the flare's energy, but the ship still shook, like it was caught in an earthquake. Lights flickered throughout the vessel. Several crew members were thrown from their stations. When the chaos ended, Kim Day was the first to speak. All systems, still working. Barely. We just survived flying close enough to a star to get a suntan. Park Gina checked her tactical display. Enemy ship status. Most of them are dead in space. I count 47 ships still active, but they're scattered and disorganized. What about their command ship? Juan asked. Still functional, but damaged. It's falling back toward the edge of the system. Dr. Choi Mina was studying her readings, carefully. The solar flare disrupted their biological systems, but it didn't kill them. The bioships are already starting to heal themselves. We have maybe an hour before they're fully operational again. An hour wasn't much time, but it was better than nothing. Juan opened a channel to the evacuation fleet. Evacuation command, this is Captain Juan. What's your status? The reply came immediately. Captain, thank the stars you're alive. We've got 38,000 people loaded, but we still need 2 more hours to finish. 2 hours. The Valkyrie. Ships would be fully healed in 1 hour. But Juan had learned not to give up when things looked impossible. Understood, we'll buy you the time. He closed the channel and looked around at his crew. They were exhausted, scared, and running on pure determination. But they were still fighting. Options? He asked Park Gina. We could try to board their command ship. If we could capture War Prime Thok, the rest might surrender. Boarding action? Kim Day looked skeptical. Sir, we don't know anything about fighting inside their ships. Those biohulls might be toxic to humans. Dr. Choi Mina had been thinking about the same problem. Actually, I think our biology might be an advantage. The Valkyrie evolved on a different world with different air and gravity. Their ship environments might be as hostile to them as they are to us. What do you mean? Juan asked. I mean, maybe the reason they think other species are inferior is because they've never had to adapt to different conditions. We humans are used to surviving in hostile environments. It's what we do. Yun-tae looked up from his communication station. Sir, I'm picking up signals from the damaged Valkyrie ships. It sounds like they're arguing with each other. The pheromone disruption really messed up their command structure. Can you translate any of it? Some of it. They're asking for orders, but nobody knows who's in charge. It's like they can't function without constant direction from above. Juan considered this information. The Valkyrie were powerful, but they were also rigid. They followed patterns and hierarchies. Humans were different. They adapted, improvised, and made decisions on their own. New plan, he announced. We're going to do something no Valkyrie would ever expect. We're going to split up. Sir? Park Gina looked confused. Think about it. They expect us to stay together, to fight as one unit. But what if we didn't? Kim, can you rig the shuttle bays to launch our fighters remotely? I think so, but why? We're going to launch every fighter and shuttle we have, all controlled by remote from the bridge. The Valkyrie will think we've split our forces and become weak, but actually we'll be everywhere at once. Dr. Choi Mina understood first. Swarm tactics, like bees attacking a predator. Exactly. Each remote-controlled ship will target a different enemy vessel. The Valkyrie won't know which targets are real and which are decoys. Park Gina began working out the tactical details. We could program the fighters to use random movement patterns. The enemy won't be able to predict where they're going. And while they're confused by the fighters, the Indomitable goes after the command ship, Juan concluded. It was a desperate plan, but desperate times called for desperate measures. The crew began preparing their fighters and shuttles for remote operation. It was complex work, but they had become experts at doing the impossible. As they worked, Yoon Tae continued monitoring Velkari communications. "Sir, I think Warprime, Thok is getting angry. He's demanding that his ships regroup and attack us properly. But they can't seem to coordinate without their bio-network working correctly." "Good," Hwan said. "Angry enemies make mistakes, and we're going to give them plenty to be angry about." The battle wasn't over. In fact, it was about to get much more interesting. But for the first time since the fighting began, Captain Li Huan felt like they might actually have a chance. After all, they were human. And 20 fighters and 6 shuttles launched from the eye, indomitable in perfect silence. Each small craft was controlled remotely from the bridge, their pilots replaced by computer programs that made them move in ways no living being would dare. They scattered across the battlefield like angry hornets, diving and weaving between the recovering Velkari ships. Captain Li Huan watched the tactical display as his improvised fleet engaged the enemy. The plan was working better than he had hoped. The Velkari ships, still struggling to repair their bio-networks, couldn't coordinate their response to the swarm attack. Fighter 7 just took out a Velkari cruiser, Commander Park Gina reported. It rammed right into their engine section. The enemy ship is venting atmosphere. Fighter 12 is engaging 2 ships at once, Lieutenant Kim Dae added from his engineering station. Those random movement patterns are driving them crazy. They can't get a target lock. But the victory came with a price. The Indomitables' crew was down to 400 people. Many had been injured during the solar flare, and Dr. Choi Mina's medical bay was full of wounded. The ship herself was barely holding together. Hull breaches had been sealed with emergency patches. Several weapons were offline. The main engines were running on pure determination and Kim Dae's engineering magic. "Captain, communications officer," Yoontae called out. "Warprime Thok is broadcasting on all frequencies. He sounds different. Let's hear it." The alien voice that filled the bridge was no longer confident and threatening. It sounded frustrated, almost confused. "Humans, you fight without honor. You use tricks and deception. This is not warfare. This is chaos." Huan activated the reply channel. "Warprime Thok, this is Captain Huan. You're right. This isn't your kind of warfare. This is human warfare. We don't follow your rules because we never agreed to play your game." There was a long pause before Thok responded. "You cannot win. Even if you destroy every ship in this fleet, more will come. The Velkari Empire spans 1,000 worlds." "Maybe," Huan replied, "but you won't be there to see it, because you're going to lose here today to one human ship and her crew." He cut the transmission and turned to his bridge crew. "Status report." Park Gina checked her displays. "We've destroyed or disabled 73 Velkari ships total. But they're adapting. The remaining ships are starting to group together for protection." Kim Dae wiped sweat from his forehead. "Our fighters are taking damage too. We've lost 8 so far. The rest won't last much longer." Dr. Choi Mina looked up from her medical scanner. "I'm detecting something interesting from the Velkari command ship. Their bio readings are changing. I think Thok is scared." "Scared?" Yoontae looked surprised. "But he's winning. He still has more ships than us." "Numbers don't mean everything," Huan explained. "What matters is that for the first time in his life, Thok is facing an enemy he can't understand or predict. That's terrifying for someone who's used to winning through superior force." The battle continued to rage around them. Human fighters danced between alien ships like moths around deadly flames. The Velkari were powerful, but they were also frustrated. Their perfect formations were broken. Their predictable tactics weren't working. For every human ship they destroyed, they seemed to lose 2 of their own. "Sir," Yoontae announced, "I'm getting an encrypted transmission from the evacuation fleet." "Put it through." The voice of the evacuation commander crackled through the speakers. "Captain Huan, we've loaded 45,000 people. Only 5,000 to go. But the transport ships are at maximum capacity. We need to start the first group toward the jump point. How long until everyone is safe? 2 hours for the first group to reach the jump point. 4 hours total for everyone. 4 more hours. Juan looked around his bridge. His crew was exhausted. His ship was falling apart. But 50,000 lives depended on them holding the line. We'll give you 4 hours, he promised. As if hearing his words, War Prime Thok's voice came over the communications again. Captain Juan, I propose single combat, you and I, warrior to warrior. Winner takes all. The bridge fell silent. Park Gina spoke first. Sir, it could be a trap. Probably, Juan agreed. But it's also an opportunity. If I can beat him, the rest of his fleet might surrender. And if you can't? Dr. Choi Mina asked quietly. Then you take command and keep fighting until the evacuation is complete. Kim Dae looked up from his station. Captain, there's something you should know. I've been monitoring Velkari communications. Their culture is based on strength and dominance. If Thok loses in single combat, it would be a massive humiliation. His own ships might abandon him. Where would this fight take place? Yoon Tai asked. As if answering his question, Thok transmitted coordinates. There is a small station in the outer system. It belonged to your miners before we destroyed them. We will meet there. No weapons except what we carry. No interference from either fleet. Juan considered the proposal. It was risky, but it might be their best chance. I accept your challenge, War Prime Thok. 1 hour from now. He closed the channel and turned to his crew. Gina, you have command. Keep hitting them with the fighters. Don't let them regroup. Sir, let me go instead, she said. You're needed here. No, this is something I have to do myself. Dr. Choi Mina stepped forward. At least let me give you something to help. She handed him a small injector. It's a stimulant. It will help you stay alert and strong during the fight. What do you know about fighting Velkari? He asked. They're stronger than humans, but not as flexible. Their reflexes are good, but predictable. They rely on overwhelming force rather than tactics. Use your size and speed advantages. Juan nodded and headed for the shuttle bay. As he walked through the ship, crew members stopped their work to wish him luck. These people had followed him into an impossible battle. Now he was going to fight their greatest enemy alone. The shuttle trip to the mining station took 30 minutes. It was a small facility, built into an asteroid for mining operations. The Velkari had destroyed most of it, but the main chamber was still intact. It would be their fighting arena. War Prime Thok was already waiting when Juan arrived. The alien was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin that looked like armored scales. His eyes were large and black, and when he spoke, Juan could see teeth like broken glass. So the human captain comes to face me alone. You are smaller than I expected. Size isn't everything, Juan replied, checking his equipment. He carried a plasma pistol and a combat knife. Simple weapons, but reliable. It is to the Velkari. We are the apex predators of the galaxy. We have conquered 12 species. We will conquer humanity. Maybe. But first you have to get past me. The two warriors circled each other in the mining station's main chamber. Gravity was low here, which might help Juan's mobility. The chamber was filled with mining equipment that could be used as cover or weapons. Thok attacked first, moving faster than Juan expected. The alien's 4 arms made him incredibly dangerous in close combat. But Juan had been fighting for 20 years, and he knew how to use his opponent's strength against them. As Thok charged, Juan rolled aside and fired his plasma pistol. The energy bolt struck the alien in the shoulder, but his natural armor absorbed most of the damage. Thok roared in pain and anger, swinging all 4 arms at once. Juan barely dodged the attack. One of Thok's claws scraped across his chest, tearing his uniform and drawing blood. But the human captain kept moving, using the mining equipment as cover. Stand and fight like a warrior, Thok demanded. I am fighting like a human, Juan replied, firing another shot that grazed the alien's leg. The battle continued for what felt like hours. Thok was stronger and had more arms, but Juan was faster and smarter. The human used every trick he could think of. hiding behind equipment using the low gravity to leap over attacks, even throwing mining tools as distractions. Slowly, Thok began to slow down. His movements became more predictable. The alien was used to quick victories through overwhelming force. He had never fought anyone who could match his endurance. "You cannot win," Thok gasped. "Even if you kill me, my fleet will destroy your ship." "Will they?" Juan asked, breathing heavily. "I've been listening to your communications. Your subordinates are already questioning your leadership. If you lose here, they'll abandon you. That's what predators do when the pack leader shows weakness." For the first time, fear showed in Thok's black eyes. He realized that Juan was right. The Velkari respected only strength. If he lost this fight, his own people would consider him weak. The alien made one final desperate attack. He charged with all four arms spread wide, trying to crush Juan in a deadly embrace. But the human captain was ready. He dropped low, rolled between Thok's legs, and came up behind him with his knife. The combat blade found the gap between Thok's armor plates. The war prime roared in pain and collapsed to his knees. "It's over," Juan said, standing behind the wounded alien with his knife at Thok's throat. "Kill me then," Thok gasped. "End it." Juan paused. He could kill this creature who had destroyed human colonies and murdered innocent people. It would be justice, it would be revenge, but it wouldn't be human. "No," Juan said, lowering his weapon. "Yo." The news traveled faster than light itself. Within hours of the battle at Haven's Rest, hyperspace communication networks carried the impossible story across the galaxy. One human warship had faced a Velkari armada of 200 ships and won. The species that had conquered 12 worlds in 3 months had been defeated by 800 humans who refused to surrender. Captain Li Huan stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as they limped toward Earth space. The ship was barely holding together. Hull patches covered dozens of breaches. Half their weapons were offline. The engines made sounds that worried Lieutenant Kim Day every time he heard them. But they were alive. All 400 surviving crew members were heading home, and behind them 50,000 civilians were safe in the evacuation fleet. "Captain," Communications Officer Yun Tae called out from his station, "I'm receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Everyone wants to know what happened here." "What kind of transmissions?" "News services, military commanders, even some alien governments. The story is spreading everywhere." Commander Park Gina looked up from her damage reports. "Sir, we're also getting messages from other human colonies. Some of them are reporting that Velkari fleets in their systems have withdrawn without explanation." Dr. Choi Mina had been monitoring alien communication channels. "It's not just the Velkari. I'm detecting increased chatter from species we've never heard of before. The Zephyrian Trade Union, something called the Nexus Collective, and others. They all want to know about the humans who defeated War Prime Thok." Juan walked to the main view screen, looking out at the stars. Each point of light might be home to an alien civilization. For years, humanity had been alone in the galaxy, struggling to establish colonies and defend themselves against hostile species. Now, suddenly, the whole galaxy was paying attention. "Sir," Kim Day reported from engineering, "I'm getting some interesting data from our captured Velkari biocomponents. It looks like their fleet network recorded everything that happened during the battle. The tactical data, the pheromone disruption, even recordings of our conversations. And the data was automatically transmitted to the Velkari home fleet before their ships withdrew. By now, every Velkari commander in the galaxy knows exactly how we beat them." Park Gina frowned. "That could be bad news. If they know our tactics, they can develop countermeasures." But Juan was thinking differently. Or it could be good news. If other Velkari commanders know that humans can adapt and fight creatively, they might think twice before attacking our colonies. Over the next few days, as the Indomitable made its way home, the crew monitored the galaxy's reaction to their victory. The responses varied wildly depending on which species was talking. The Velkari Empire was in chaos. Several colony worlds had declared independence, claiming their Velkari overlords were weak. Other war primes were fighting among themselves, each claiming they could succeed where Thok had failed. The Zephyrian Trade Union, a merchant civilization, was quietly sending trade offers to human colonies. Their messages suggested they had been too afraid to deal with humans while the Velkari were hunting them. Now they saw opportunity. Most interesting of all was the Nexus Collective, a group of artificial intelligences that controlled several star systems. They had never shown interest in biological species before, but now they were requesting formal contact with Earth's government. Why would machines want to talk to us? Yuntae wondered. Dr. Choi Mina had been studying the AI transmissions. I think they're curious about human unpredictability. Their decision-making is based on logic and probability. Our victory at Haven's Rest was mathematically impossible. They want to understand how we did it. What do we tell them? Park Gina asked. The truth, Juan replied. We tell them that sometimes the most logical thing to do is ignore logic. Sometimes you have to take crazy risks because they're the right thing to do. But the most surprising development came from within the Velkari fleet itself. War Prime Thok, who should have been executed for his defeat, was instead being kept under house arrest on his command ship. More importantly, he was providing intelligence about Velkari weaknesses to human forces. The first report came through encrypted channels 3 days after the battle. Thok revealed that the Velkari Empire was not as unified as it appeared. Many subject species were held in line through fear alone. If that fear was broken, rebellions would spread like wildfire across Velkari space. Why is he helping us? Park Gina wondered. Juan thought he understood. Because I spared his life. In Velkari culture, that creates a debt of honor. He has to repay what he owes. Even if it means betraying his own people? He's not betraying them. He's trying to save them. Thok knows that if the Velkari keep fighting humans, they'll eventually lose everything. Better to negotiate now, while they still have something left. The information Thok provided was invaluable. He gave locations of Velkari supply bases, details about their command structure, and most importantly, the truth about their biological weaknesses. Dr. Choi Mina used this data to develop new weapons and countermeasures that were quickly distributed to human fleets throughout the galaxy. But perhaps the most significant change was happening on Earth itself. The Terran Federation government, which had been focused on defense and survival, was suddenly receiving diplomatic requests from dozens of alien species. Some wanted trade agreements, others wanted military alliances. A few wanted to surrender, hoping that humans would be more merciful rulers than the Velkari. The president of the Terran Federation sent a personal message to Captain Juan. Your actions at Haven's Rest have changed humanity's position in the galaxy forever. We're no longer just survivors. We're players in the galactic community. Come home, Captain, we have a lot of work to do. As the Indomitable approached the Sol system, her crew began to realize what they had accomplished. They hadn't just won a battle. They had announced to the galaxy that humanity was not going to be conquered or destroyed. They were going to fight, adapt and survive no matter what the universe threw at them. Sir, Yuntae announced, I'm receiving a transmission from Earth Fleet Command. They're sending an escort to bring us home. On the main screen, a dozen human warships appeared. They formed up around the battered Indomitable in a formation of honor, escorting the heroes home. But Juan was already thinking about the future. The galaxy had noticed humanity, but that brought new dangers as well as opportunities. Other species would test them. Some would become allies, others enemies. There would be more battles, more difficult choices, more times when doing the right thing seemed impossible. Gina, he said to his first officer, start working on new tactical procedures. We need to be ready to teach other human crews what we learned at Haven's Rest. Already working on it, sir. I'm calling them the Haven Protocols. Kim Day looked up from his engineering station. And I'm documenting all the technical innovations we developed. The pheromone disruptor, the gravitational pulse, the remote fighter tactics. Other ships will need to know how to build and use them. Dr. Choi Mina was preparing medical reports about treating both human and alien injuries. I'm also working on a xenobiology database. If we're going to be dealing with more alien species, we need to understand their biology and psychology. Even young Yun-Tae was thinking ahead. Sir, I've been analyzing communication patterns from different species. Each one has unique ways of talking and thinking. If we can understand them better, we might be able to avoid some fights and win others. Juan smiled as he listened to his crew plan for the future. These people had followed him into an impossible battle and emerged victorious. Now they were ready to help humanity face whatever came next. "Contact Earth Fleet Command," he ordered. "Tell them the crew of the Indomitable is ready for our next assignment." As they approached Earth, Juan looked out at his home star system. It looked the same as always, but everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the galaxy. They had allies, enemies, and responsibilities they had never imagined. The Battle of Haven's Rest was over, but its consequences were just beginning. The galaxy would remember what happened when one human warship refused to abandon 50,000 civilians to their fate. And they would learn that when humans make a promise to protect the innocent, no force in the universe can make them break. Till the age of human expansion into the galaxy had begun. It would not be easy, but it would be incredible. 50 years had passed since the Battle of Haven's Rest. The galaxy was a very different place now. Admiral Park Gina stood on the bridge of the TFS Peacekeeper, flagship of the Galactic Peace Fleet. Through the view screen, she could see Haven's Rest Memorial Station orbiting the world that had once been under siege. The station was massive now, home to nearly 1 million beings from dozens of species. It served as both a monument to the battle and a center for diplomatic relations between the various galactic civilizations. Admiral, her communications officer, reported. "The ceremony is ready to begin. Representatives from 43 species are in attendance." Gina nodded. Every year on this date, the galaxy remembered the battle that changed everything. But this year was special. It was the 50th anniversary, and some very important people were here to tell their stories. In the station's main hall, thousands of beings gathered. Humans stood alongside former Velkari, Zephyrian merchants, Nexus collective artificial intelligences in robotic bodies, and species that hadn't even been known 50 years ago. They were all here for the same reason: to remember the day one. Ship proved that courage could triumph over overwhelming odds. Chief Engineer Kim Day, now elderly but still sharp, walked to the speaking platform. He had become famous throughout the galaxy as the founder of the Interspecies Technology Exchange, an organization that helped different civilizations share scientific knowledge peacefully. 50 years ago, he began, his voice carrying clearly, through the hall. "I was a young lieutenant trying to keep an old ship running long enough to save 50,000 people. I never imagined that the modifications we made that day would become standard equipment on ships throughout the galaxy. The pheromone disruptor that Kim had jury-rigged from Velkari biocomponents was now used by dozens of species to communicate with biological ships. The gravitational pulse techniques had revolutionized space combat. Most importantly, the idea of using remote-controlled fighters had given smaller civilizations the ability to defend themselves against larger empires. But technology wasn't what won the battle," Kim continued. "It was the decision made by our captain to put the lives of strangers ahead of our own safety. That's the real lesson of Haven's Rest." Next to speak was Dr. Choi Mina, now director of the Multi-Species Medical Academy on New Geneva. Her research into alien biology had helped prevent 3 wars by allowing diplomats to understand how different species thought and felt. "When I first examined Velkari bioships," she said, "I saw them as enemies to be defeated. But over the years I've learned that every species has something valuable to offer. The Velkari taught us about biological integration. The Nexus Collective showed us new forms of consciousness. The Zephyrians demonstrated the power of peaceful trade." She paused, looking out at the diverse audience. "The galaxy is not a place where the strongest survive. It's a place where different kinds of strength can work together to build something better than any one species could achieve alone." Captain Yoon Tae, now Earth's senior ambassador to the Galactic Council, spoke about the diplomatic revolution that followed the battle. "Before Haven's Rest," he explained, "most species believed that conflict was inevitable. The strong would always prey on the weak. But we proved that even the weak could become strong when they stood up for what was right." He gestured to a section of the audience where several former Velkari war primes sat alongside human admirals. "Today, the Velkari Republic is one of our strongest allies. Their biological technology, combined with human adaptability, has created medicines that have saved billions of lives across the galaxy. But the most anticipated speaker was someone few beings had ever expected to see. Former War Prime Thok himself. The ancient Velkari was smaller than he had been 50 years ago. His scales were gray with age, and he moved slowly. But his voice was still strong as he approached the platform. "I came to Haven's Rest 50 years ago to destroy a human colony," he said simply. "I commanded 200 of the finest ships in the Velkari fleet. I was certain of victory." The hall was completely silent. Many of the younger beings had never heard Thok speak publicly about the battle. "Captain Li Huan defeated me not because he was stronger, but because he was willing to do something I could not understand. Sacrifice everything to protect strangers. In my culture, we protected our own kind and destroyed everyone else. We could not imagine fighting for people we had never met." Thok's forearms gestured to the mixed crowd around him. "Today, I see the children and grandchildren of those 50,000 humans we tried to kill. But I also see Velkari children, Zephyrian children, beings from species that didn't even exist when I was young. They all live in peace because one human captain chose mercy over revenge." He paused, his large black eyes reflecting the lights of the memorial hall. "The Velkari called humans weak because they showed mercy to enemies. We were wrong. Mercy is not weakness. It is the greatest strength any species can possess. It is what allows civilizations to grow instead of just conquer." When the formal speeches ended, people moved through the Memorial Museum. The centerpiece was the restored bridge of the original Indomitable. Visitors could sit in the captain's chair where Li Huan made the decision to fight impossible odds. But the most moving display was simpler, a holographic projection of the evacuation itself. 50,000 faces, men and women, children and elderly, all the people who had been saved that day. The projection showed them as they were then, and as they were now 50 years later. Scientists, artists, teachers, engineers, all contributing to the galaxy's growth. A young human girl visiting with her school group asked her teacher a question that made nearby adults pause. "Teacher, why did Captain Huan risk his whole ship? For people he didn't know?" The teacher, a Zephyrian with blue skin and silver eyes, thought carefully before answering. "Because that's what good people do, child. They help others not because they have to, but because it's right. And sometimes, when good people stand together, they can accomplish impossible things." In a quiet corner of the memorial, a statue stood with a simple inscription, "Captain Li Huan," who proved that one person's choice to do right can change the galaxy forever. But perhaps the most important part of the memorial wasn't the displays or statues. It was the children playing together in the observation lounges. Human children laughed with young Velkari. Zephyrian teenagers shared jokes with Nexus collective AI constructs. Dozens of species that had never met 50 years ago were now friends, neighbors, and family. The Battle of Haven's Rest had ended in a matter of hours. Its consequences would last forever. As the ceremony concluded, Admiral Park Gina made her way to the station's command center. She had work to do. 3 new species had recently joined the galactic community, and there were reports of unknown threats in the Outer Rim territories. The galaxy was still a dangerous place, but it was no longer a place where civilizations faced threats alone. "Admiral," her aide reported, "the Council has approved the new exploration mission. The TFS New Horizons is ready to depart for the Andromeda Contact Zone." "Good," Gina replied. "Make sure they have a full diplomatic team aboard. If we encounter new civilizations, we want to make friends, not enemies." The New Horizons was the most advanced ship in the Peace Fleet, equipped with technology from dozens of species. Its crew included humans, Velkari, Zephyrians, and representatives from 12 other civilizations. They would explore new regions of space not as conquerors but as ambassadors of a galaxy that had learned to choose cooperation over conflict. As Gina watched the ship depart from the station's observation deck, she thought about her old captain. Li Huan had died 5 years earlier, surrounded by family and friends from across the galaxy. His funeral had been attended by beings from every known species. They came not to mourn a human, but to honor someone who had shown them all a better way to live. The plaque on his grave was simple. He chose to stand when others would flee. The galaxy remembers. And they did remember. In schools across thousands of worlds, children learned about the Battle of Haven's Rest. They learned that being brave didn't mean not being scared. It meant doing what was right even when you were terrified. Military academies taught the tactical innovations that had won the battle, but they also taught something more important, that the best victories were those that turned enemies into allies. Trade schools and diplomatic colleges used the battle as an example of how different approaches to problems could lead to unexpected solutions. But most importantly, parents told their children the story as a bedtime tale. The story of a ship that couldn't win, a crew that wouldn't give up, and a captain who proved that sometimes the most important battles are fought not for conquest, but for the simple right of others to live free. The galaxy had grown larger and more complex in 50 years, but it had also grown kinder. Wars still happened, but they were smaller and shorter. When conflicts arose, mediators trained in the Haven's Rest protocols worked to find peaceful solutions. The phrase human solution had entered the vocabulary of dozens of languages. It meant finding a creative, unexpected answer to an impossible problem. It meant refusing to accept that some challenges couldn't be overcome.